to prove this upcoming season in the NFL for a few notable quarterbacks in the AFC North. After losing in the divisional round of the playoffs to the Bills in Orchard Park last season, Lamar Jackson looks to bounce back and take the Ravens back to Super Bowl glory. Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals look to lead the Bengals back to the playoffs after missing it last year and in back-to-back seasons. The last time Cincinnati made the postseason, they played in the AFC Championship game in Arrowhead. And coming off a very rough tenure in the Meadowlands with the Jets, Aaron Rodgers looks to end his career on a high note with his new team in the Steelers and get redemption after a down season. Mike T, Kevin Clark, David Dennis Jr. Mike, I'm going to start with you here. Let's talk about expectations and what's at stake for these AFC North quarterbacks. Who among those three that I mentioned needs to make a deep playoff run the most?
Aaron Rodgers. And let's give Aaron Rodgers credit because he took the path that was certainly not the easy, but the more challenging one. Made over $300 million, four-time MVP, Super Bowl champ. He does not want to go out the way the last few years went at the Jets. That's why he's playing. It's very obvious. If this season doesn't go well, if it's average, if it's below average, if no one's rooting for an injury, if he gets hurt again, that's going to hurt his legacy. Like, one thing about Aaron Rodgers, and he's enormously complicated, we all know that, but obviously he's a competitor and his legacy is very meaningful for him. That's why he's playing. So to me, those other players, sure, they have some risk here, but they have a long way to go in their careers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers essentially said this is it. So I think there's a hugely consequential season as we think about Aaron Rodgers' legacy and certainly the back half of his career.
Yeah, the other two are on the right side of 30, as they like to say. Kevin Clark, among those three quarterbacks in the AFC North, who needs to make a deep playoff run the most?
It's Lamar Jackson. First of all, he has that because if he wins the Super Bowl, he makes me look good, which is the number one objective of every NFL player, or at least it should be, because I'm picking them to win the Super Bowl this year. But for me, I'm looking at the other guys. Joe Burrow is saddled with the worst ownership in football, probably, when you just look at the way they handle their roster and the Trey Hendrickson saga and all that stuff. And then Aaron Rodgers, his legacy is solidified. There's going to be a street named after him in Green Bay. Probably not a street named after him in Jersey after his Jets tenure, but still, we know what he's done. He has a ring, he has a Lombardi, all that stuff, and he's got a lucrative podcasting career on deck whenever he wants it. But Lamar Jackson has to win a Super Bowl because he's in this group yesterday. And yesterday I did the tiers on this show, and we talked about that grouping, that Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow grouping that is right now ringless, but one of those guys needs to break through. For me, that's going to be Lamar Jackson. He has to do it this year. They have the best roster. Malachi Starks, the first-round pick out of Georgia, is going to change the way we look at this defense. It's going to free up Kyle Hamilton to be one of the best players in football. This is going to be a special team, I think, and Lamar Jackson breaks through.
David, you got Lamar, Rodgers, Burrow. Where are you going?
I'm going Lamar Jackson, and part of it is just simple process of elimination. Joe Burrow, if they do not succeed, it probably will not be on his shoulders. He can have a 5,000-yard season, to be honest, and they may not make it because the defense back and the personnel around on the other side of the ball is not up to expectations, and we won't look at him differently. For Aaron Rodgers, there's a lot of what Kevin Clark said. The guy's legacy is pretty much solidified, and I don't really have high expectations for him this season anyway. He's over 40. He's coming back a couple years ago from a devastating injury, and as long as he doesn't blow that locker room up or have a tenure as bad as the Jets, I think it's a success for him this season. But Lamar Jackson is a guy where inevitability of the fact that we feel like at some point he's going to win a Super Bowl starts brushing up against when is it going to happen and if it's going to happen. And when the when becomes an if, that's when it becomes worrisome for a guy like Lamar Jackson. He can rank up, start getting all the MVPs that he can, and we can have all the great regular seasons. But at some point, we want to see this come together into a Super Bowl run, and this year is as good a chance as any. And we cannot have another year where we're talking about Lamar Jackson has a great regular season and comes up short in the postseason. This is his year to take it as far as he possibly can.
I know you mentioned the Cincinnati Bengals and their defense, but they are better in that respect. They got Al Golden from Notre Dame as their defensive coordinator. I think that unit I know there's questions about Trey Hendrickson, whether he wants to be there, whether he'll play, all of that, but it cannot possibly be worse than it was a year ago. But on the other side of that, we are one Chris Canty take away from Joe Burrow being knocked off the top 5 list, and I just cannot have that happen. This guy was incredible early on, and when you set the expectation of getting to a Super Bowl in year 2, that's where the bar is. In a conference championship right after that, no playoff appearances for the last 2 years. Getting impatient with your receivers and everything else that's going on in Cincinnati right now after they paid Joe Burrow. He was incredible last year. He led the league in passing, led the league in passing touchdowns. If he can't get this Cincinnati Bengals team in what should be a formidable AFC North to at least the second round of the playoffs, I think we're going to be talking about potential changes in Cincinnati, and not necessarily for Joe Burrow. Who's this going to fall on, Mike T? It's going to fall on Zach Taylor. You agree?
Well, yeah, look, I think they're going to be great on offense. To me, it'd be shocking if they weren't, just given where they are with, those 2 receivers. It's so hard to match up with them. I agree, like, the defense has to be at least middle of the road, which it should be. But again, I just go back to the question is, those other quarterbacks, as you said, they're on the right side of the 30. They should all have, barring something unforeseen, long, vibrant careers that go on for a long time. I just think Rodgers is a fascinating figure because, again, like him, hate him, whatever, he didn't take the easy path, and it is someone that's going to be 42, who's made $300 million. No one would have blamed him if he just went off into the sunset or the podcast world, as Kevin said, whatever he's going to do. But the fact that he's playing, like, to me, that's putting his chips in the middle of the table in terms of, like, hey, here's how I want to be viewed. Is he Joe Namath of the Rams, right? Like, what is the end of his career look like?
All right, speaking of the Rams, Davante Adams is now in LA, teaming up with Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua, a team that just reached a divisional round of the playoffs and finished first in the NFC West. Kevin, coming to you here, how far do you see the Rams going in 2025?
Nobody should be stupid enough to pick a Super Bowl on July 11th, but I am that stupid. I picked the Ravens to win the Super Bowl in the last segment, and the Rams are my NFC pick, okay? I'm not doing it just because these are the 2 segments. I've been marinating on this all off season. I think this Rams team, with their front 7, with their young guys who were generating pressure really, really early, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, what they brought to the defense last year. You add that in with Davante Adams on the offensive side of the ball. I think he has the chance to be one of the best number 2 options in the sport. Obviously, Puka Nacua being the number 1. I don't think Davante Adams is a top 10 receiver anymore, but it might not matter. He's an incredible route runner. He can still get open. He can still cook guys. Matthew Stafford's going to get him the ball. We know Sean McVay is going to be able to scheme it up. I love what this team was able to do as far as a competitive rebuild, as far as a retooling. It didn't take them long. Remember, they were supposed to be rebuilding again last year. It didn't happen. They made a playoff run. This is a special team, a special organization. They are going to Santa Clara for the Super Bowl.
I mean, just at the looks of this, Mike T, this might be Sean McVay's best roster he's had in LA. How far do you see them going?
Maybe in the first round of the playoffs. And again, just go back to this discussion we've had all week. Kevin, when you look at the Rams offense, and just take Tampa Bay, for example, because we know how good the North is and the East, if you just look at this Buccaneer-Ram conversation, the Buccaneers are so much deeper than the Rams. And look,